Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Cats and Bolts podcast. If you can believe, episode number 22 already of Florida's favorite NHL show and most viewed NHL podcast, too, by the way. Thank you so much, Florida, for enjoying our program. 22 episodes in, continuing to be broadcast from the beautiful Podcast Junkie Studios in downtown Boca Raton, Florida. And speaking of beautiful, I'm your host, Rod Peterson. She's the co-host, Serena Taylor. And welcome to the show. Might as well start fun right now, right?
Usually it's me roasting you right
Yeah,
away.
exactly.
Yeah.
We have a lot of fun lined up for you today, as we always do. But before we bring in our special guest, Jeff Chychrun from Valley Sports Florida, NHL veteran, we had a very wonderful weekend. And apologies, if you will, to Panthers fans, but we went over to Tampa Bay on the weekend to catch the Battle of Florida, the Panthers winning 9-2 over the Lightning. And I brought back some trinkets for our set, our version of a bobblehead, Serena, which is nice. This puck, I had to go back and get Panthers Lightning puck. You aren't going to see a lot. You can't buy these in stores.
We bought it in a store
Yeah, well,
at the
it's
rink.
Slapshot line. And we just had a great time. But before we bring in Chick, we got to tell you about this story, and you can throw the photo up if you want, Benny. We're walking into the rink, and who do we run into but the ageless and the peerless, the great Phil Esposito. Take it away, Serena Taylor.
Well, I heard you telling this story, like, she didn't recognize him. It's not that I didn't recognize him. He had his back to us, but we were walking underneath, and what do you know? There he was. And Rod was like, hey, there's Phil. And
There's more.
I definitely lost my composure a lot more than I thought I was going to. It was extremely overwhelming. And the poor guy's trying to shake my hand, and I'm just beside myself.
I was a little surprised how emotional you
Me
were.
too.
Yeah.
Me too. So Rod's like, he's trying to shake your hand. I'm like, I don't know what's going on here. So it was such an honor to meet him. And obviously Rod snapped a picture, and I looked like a total doofus because I was crying and it was whatever. But what a great person. And the first thing that popped into my mind was, can we call my dad? Phil Esposito is my dad's hero. My dad was born and raised on Phil Esposito, and that was his hero. And Phil was extremely accommodating, and he said, absolutely, let's call him. Well, I was panicking a little because my dad, Phil, was not answering the phone. So Phil Esposito says, what's your dad's name? I said, you know what? It's Phil. He goes, well, there you go. So long story short, he kept saying, it's Phil Esposito, but my dad couldn't hear him because we were underneath in the rink and my dad couldn't hear him. And my dad said that he heard, by the time he could hear him talking, after about 5 words, he recognized his voice.
His voice, yeah.
His voice. And he was so overcome that he said, I had to sit down on a 5-gallon pail. I couldn't stand anymore. And next thing I hear, they're talking about the Summit Series right away, because who doesn't talk about that with Phil? And
Which Phil?
Which both Phils. We still
Yeah.
talk about that.
Exactly.
And they start talking about the Summit Series, and Phil Esposito said, well, I got 76 goals that year and whatever. And my dad said, yeah, I know, because you got 78 assists. And that's how big of a fan, my dad is of Phil Esposito, and just, it overwhelms me to think about the fact that I was able to do that for my dad.
Mm-hmm.
That was the best feeling. And, I think my dad was probably crying. I don't know, he didn't admit it or not, but when I got back on the phone, he goes, oh my God, Serena, I can't believe you did that. I can't believe I got to talk to him. And it just made his life.
And then your dad called back like 5 times that night while we were at the game.
He was trying to process everything. He's calling. I missed the first goal because I was on the phone in the stairwell with my dad.
Yeah, well, and the best part, if I just may, he took the phone. He's like, hi, Phil. This is Phil Esposito.
Yeah.
Imagine 2 seniors talking to each other. And he took the phone and walked down the hall with it.
Gone.
He was
talking about hockey.
Gone for 20 minutes. That's Phil Esposito, Tampa Bay. You have a gem. Not that you don't know that, and I'd say once the Lightning took care of us, right, with everything, and then we got back here and all the Panthers people the other night were like, did you have fun? Did you have fun in Tampa Bay? What'd you think of the game? How were you treated? So I just love the culture here of both teams, and the Battle of Florida, where they don't wish each other's dead like the Battle of Alberta, but it's still a rivalry, and it's a thing.
There's some logic, though.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a lot of logic when it comes to Oilers and Flames fans. They don't care.
They're crazy.
Yeah, but it was good. It was a good time.
So that's our Tampa story, and thank you, Lightning. And like I said, we've got the gifts. Now, here he is, without waiting, any further ado, can we please bring in Jeff Chychrun, the veteran of the National Hockey League, 262 games with the Philadelphia Flyers, LA Kings, Edmonton Oilers, and Pittsburgh Penguins. He's no stranger to the program. He's been on before, and we got him. Chick, welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you, Rod, Serena. Great to be here. I love listening to the Phil Esposito stories, too, by the way. I was first grade in 72, Century Public School in Ottawa, Ontario, and they brought us into the gymnasium for the third period. And I think they were down a goal going in the third, and Phil was a huge part of it, wasn't he? But fast forward 4 years to 1976, and they had the first Canada Cup series. Canada was practicing in August in Ottawa at Lansdowne Park, or Civic Center, right below Lansdowne
They've renamed it many
Park.
times.
Many times. And so I remember my mom brought my teammate Mark Warby. We're 10 years old, right? And Warbs had a bit of a mouth on him. So all the guys are walking in, and we're standing around, and all of a sudden Esposito comes in, and Warbs were number 7. So he went running right up to Phil. And so he's talking to him. All of a sudden he turns to my mother. He says, "Hey, Mrs. Chick, aren't you come on over here and give Big Phil a kiss?" He said. And Phil looks at my buddy. He says, "Shut up, kid." But it was pretty fun. I'll never forget that.
Absolute icon.
Isn't he the greatest ambassador for our sport of all time?
He's amazing, isn't he? So I substituted for Moeller during COVID. We did game in New York and one in Tampa, and so Phil was there. So I was bending Phil's ear in between every period, and he was the GM of the Rangers, I believe, my draft year. So had a little bit of background, but it was the first time I really had a long conversation with him. And he's the same guy. Really, like if you listen to him on radio, and he goes, "Oh my God!" Like he's the same personality on the mic, right, as he probably is at the kitchen having a glass of red wine is the way I look at it.
Yeah, well, and by the way, 9-2, the Panthers won the other night. Do you want to say what Phil said during the game? He's like,
it's a second intermission. I mean,
it wasn't that bad.
The things that guy told me, I could have talked to him for 3 hours minimum. Yeah. But at the second intermission, it was obviously a blowout. Everybody knew what the final was going to ultimately be. And he goes, "Well, it's 7:30. If there's no bullshit in this game, I'll be at 8:10. I'll be having drinks at the bar." And he was serious.
At 81.
He's serious. Yeah. Well, he went to his favorite Italian restaurant there. He was telling me about it. It was the first place he ever ate when he went to Tampa. Wow. And, the guy just planted roots there and said, "This place needs a hockey team, and I'm going to do anything in my power to bring it here." And he's just been unbelievable.
And he did, right? I mean, he was, I guess you could call him the first owner. He put the first group together, right, to bring the team to Tampa. He was the first general manager. He's probably had just about every job. He was probably answering the phones for a long time when they first opened up in Tampa, right? But yeah, it probably means that franchise probably means as much to Phil as any franchise means to anybody that had ever been in management, and now obviously in the Sunset doing a great job.
And hence there's a statue of him in front of the arena. Yeah, so now to current days, we have a very special episode, and I don't know if Ben can swing the camera around. If you can, great. If you can't, that's fine too. But you got a special guest. 3 generations of Chychruns in town this week.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Pretty blessed, yeah. Dad's in from Ottawa. Thrilled to have him here. He hadn't been here. He was here the week COVID broke out, actually. Him and my stepmom, and they had to turn around quick because we didn't know if the border was going to be closed or not, right? So anyway, finally back after a few years, but he's enjoying. He's loving having my son playing in Ottawa. He only goes to about 41 of the 41 home games there, so he's got a pretty good seat every night and loving every minute of it.
Yeah, well, and proud dad too. Yeah. So Jacob comes through here with the Senators. It was the most recent Panthers game, and it was a 3-2 Florida win in overtime. Jacob led all Sens in time on ice. I wrote it down. You knew. Yeah. 24-18, 4 blocks, a shot on goal. Hard to miss out there.
Yeah. And they got some guys that can really dance back there too. So they're actually fun to watch. The record's been a little bit baffling this year. Maybe not as organized structurally as they could have been the first 40 games or so, but they got some help back. Shane Pinto's back, a little deeper in the middle of the lineup now, so it's definitely helping. You get a few saves too, right?
Well, before we jump into all the other things that we want to talk about, and I think Serena wants to talk about potential trade deadline stuff. I want to get to Mullet Arena, a Stanley Cup final pick, blah, blah, blah. But I did hear in the press box that Jacob Chychrun might be on the trading block, and I just thought, can you attest, Serena, everybody's on the trading block thanks to Wayne Gretzky, right?
I would say.
So anybody is.
Yeah, the rumors are never true.
Yeah.
Right? But maybe you can speak a little bit more to that.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of it, it's not always hockey moves. Sometimes it all comes down to business moves too. But I think where Jacob's concerned today is he has this year and next year left on his deal at a pretty good number for if you're going to add. A lot of these teams are right up against the cap. So he's probably an affordable add as a high-end sort of blue liner. And you get him for 2 playoff runs if they do make that trade prior to. I'd really like it to settle in, and I think Ottawa really underachieved this year. They're finally playing what I would consider Sens hockey. You know, they're fast, they're strong. A little with Jacques now, a little more defensively responsible, probably. I'd like to see where that translates come next October and see if they can finally get off to a good start. It's tough. Anytime, teams, you look at Montreal, you look at Buffalo, all these teams, you sort of thought Detroit were going to take that next step. It's tough to get there, right? It's tough to get to that playoff spot. You look at the Panthers, to get to where they are today, and I'm going to probably jump the gun, but I think they're the beast of the East. I don't think anybody's as good as they are. It took them a couple tough losses to Tampa in the playoffs to sort of learn how to win that playoff hockey, and then a couple of coaching changes too. Mo's done a great job with the bones that he inherited. So I'd like to see him have another opportunity with those Ottawa Senators because I think they can make some noise. I think there's they've built that team the right way through the draft and sprinkled in a few people.
So you don't want to see Jacob traded?
I'd prefer not. I mean, listen, I want to see him in the playoffs again. That was the reason he probably wanted to leave Arizona to begin with because he loved Arizona. But we couldn't see where that future was. You're already 7 years in the league. You want to have a shot other than the bubble in Edmonton. So you want to have it. You only have so many years to make that mark, right? So, but at the same time, he settled and bought a house in Ottawa, happy there, family there. It'd be nice to see them have that chance because I think that, and you got a special guy like Claude Giroux there, who he's really soaking up everything that guy brings like a sponge. Really special that he's able to share with that guy there too.
It perplexes me that Ottawa, like you said, it's probably a little baffling. They're where they are in the standings right now and their win versus losses because you have veterans, you have good leadership, they have strengths everywhere. It's a little odd to me that they don't have a better, they're not higher in the standings.
I agree 100%. And I think there was some with the former regime, they did a really good job of developing, the Kachucks, the Stutzlas, the Shabuts, all these young studs, really, right? But who knows? Sometimes you have to make that quick change of sort of, look what happened when Paul Maurice came in here, right? They might have been the most dynamic offensive club in a while in this league. Maybe Edmonton, we could argue there obviously too, but they used to outscore their problems, right? And then the first day Paul Maurice is in town, training camp, he said, you know what? We did a lot of things 3 feet from the boards today. Like really learn to grind it out, be on that right side of the puck. Maybe that's what Ottawa needs to sort of get to that next level. There were some tough nights, but they beat some really good clubs too. There's such parity in the league, right?
There's nobody mulching everybody except for Florida. They're
right.
the only team that's beating everybody consistently, and most nights by a lot.
I mean, if I was to sit here I would expect Edmonton to win 82 games a year with that talent they have there. But it's tough. Like they didn't have the right mix for whatever reason. All of a sudden, Chris Knobloch comes in and they bring in Koff and they're doing a great job.
I think the Paul Coffey thing was a lot more than what people are giving it credit for. Edmonton's had weak defense for a long time. Great forwards, obviously, but bringing Paul Coffey in, Edmonton does such a good job of bringing in their old players because they have that once an Oiler, always an Oiler. They have that passion for it. It's different. And he's just done such amazing things. You have to have respect for a guy like Paul Coffey if you're playing in Edmonton.
Yeah, no doubt. And I played with Koff for a little while in LA, and I know the type of competitor he is. Forget about the skill set even, right? Like those guys on those dynasty teams, they knew how to win and they expected to win. And I think that's sort of what Koff brought in. But it's interesting. Dave Manson was a heck of a hockey player, right? He was running the D. So whatever they're doing today is working, and you got to enjoy the ride, right? Because then it just makes Leon and Connor that much better. And how fun are those guys to watch?
Speaking of all this, Jeff Chychrun here from Bally Sports, Florida. Every time you come, we just attack you with our questions. I appreciate you coming in a lot. We don't ever have enough time, but we were watching the Oilers game the other day at Mullet Arena. And what did it end? It was 6-3, I think, but it was 3-3 going into the third.
3-2 for Arizona going into the third.
Okay, so we're watching that, and we're like, this rink is a joke, but it kind of looks like fun. It was all Oiler fans there. You know how games are in Arizona.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering what the update is. You're following it.
Yeah, I still do. I mean, listen, my son was there for 7 years, right? So I certainly want that market to survive. So, I mean, Ottawa played in the Civic Center, probably seated 9,000 for a while, the Corral, right? Obviously in Calgary, but it can't go on forever. And I think the problem is there's no end plan yet, right? They keep having these land deals that fall away and get voted down. And I know the city of Tempe, they only had like 35,000 votes. It's a municipal election, right? Who votes in municipal elections? But to not get 20,000 votes you could have paid people off, right? Yeah. Yeah. Wouldn't it cost that much? Here's $1 to 20,000 people. Get out there and vote. Anyway, just kidding. But right. But anyway, yeah. So it's a fun atmosphere. And the good part is, talking to the guy, the ice surface is good. So it's a safe place for the boys to play, but you can't go on forever. I mean, and from the player's perspective, you're not getting enough. We got such a good fan base here now, don't we? Between Florida, I was saying to Dad last night, look at this, it's packed, 20,000 people in here, and Tampa, you need those butts in the seats for revenue, right? It's a revenue sharing league, right? So it can't go on forever.
But that Coyotes owner doesn't need the money,
right? He doesn't. Alex Marwell. So I don't know. He has a couple of casinos. I think he has the Monte Carlo.
You got the Gila River for sure.
Right. I didn't know.
I heard 51 cents of every dollar spent on gambling in Arizona goes in his pocket.
No kidding.
He doesn't worry about selling tickets.
I believe he has a casino license for the next one to go up, maybe the last one in the.
Right.
I think that's all part of the plan. But listen, when he came in, we thought he was great, and this was all good. Then COVID hit, and who knows? The world went crazy.
Well, there's no sense of urgency for him.
Probably
Can you imagine
not,
a different market?
Yeah.
They just wouldn't put up with that.
Yeah. No,
but
right.
Something's going to happen. Whatever's going to happen will happen. And I agree. I think that it's great for them to have a team there. I just don't know if they can sustain it.
Yeah. It's a big market, right? So I
6
think
million people,
Mark Kostelic plays in Ottawa. I mean, you look at Austin Matthews, the Kachuk boys, they were all born there, right? There's a lot of hockey coming out of there.
They'd put together a hell of a team if it was city by city.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, that's true. That's true.
By the way, I'm going to come back on the Jacob Chychrun minor hockey story because we have so many hockey parents from Florida that watch. You wouldn't believe, and they have questions for you on that. But trade deadline stuff, it's coming up 3 weeks away.
Yeah.
I don't know do you have any questions for him on that? Because I do, but I don't want to monopolize this.
I mean, I don't ever really put too much stock in the trade deadline. Whatever's going to happen, it's never really leaked, the big ones that do happen. But I think the one that is kind of peculiar to me is I think it was last week or the week before, we were talking about the Rangers. Well, now they've won 8 games in a row.
Right.
But they lost Blake Wheeler for the season. So do you see them or any other teams that could potentially be competing in the East make a change?
Yeah, I do. It's tough because I don't really know. I know what he went for a year ago, and there's value in that sort of low contract hit for a contending club. And then they have to look at fits, right? And sort of what goes back to Ottawa. Because I think Ottawa want NHL players going back. So who sort of fits that mold? So, I mean, I don't know. I'm just sort of going over their roster. If who goes back to Ottawa? If Ottawa wants a right shot defenseman, right? Are they available? I don't know. But I think the Rangers as a club, they'd be very intriguing, I would say. And I probably shouldn't speculate on where you end up.
Don't worry, you won't be the only one. Everybody is.
Yeah. But there's some I think talented defensemen like playing with talented defensemen, because you're giving and going and you're like-minded people. I know my son says that all the time. He likes playing with like-minded hockey players. He loved playing with Shane Gostisbehere, Alex Goligoski, Thomas Chabot. These are guys that because they're out there having fun, right? They're slinging pucks around, and they defend better because they have the puck on their stick a lot more too. So it's kind of a fun environment. But I think the Rangers, you look at Fox, you look at Trouba, you got Lindgren, Keandre Miller. Got some, is it Schneider? I'm trying to think who's on that third pair. They got some talented guys.
That would be good.
And good coaching. He played for Phil Housley, ran the D in Arizona there for a while too. I think the year my son scored 18 goals, led the league in goals for D. Phil was running the D. So the more you look at it, yeah, it could be an intriguing spot. You never know.
Well, the Flames are the one that keeps coming up. You spend half your time in Canada, so you see what they're saying about Noah Hannafin and Chris Tanev.
Yeah.
Do you think they blow it up? They're not making the playoffs.
So they keep talking about a soft, not a rebuild, but a soft tweak, right? Something like that. I don't know how that works. I know my son, he has some limited a 10-team no trade list, and I don't even. Maybe my dad knows who's on it. I'm not actually quite sure everybody that's on it. So, but
do you know, John? You wouldn't say. Yeah.
Don't spill the beans.
It's between the player and grandpa.
Yeah. Right. An agent.
Yeah. Well, listen, I say it a lot. Tampa's on the bubble, but I think they'll be in, despite their struggles.
I think they are. I think they will.
Did you go over to Tampa to watch?
I didn't, but we watched. In fact, where was I? Coming home, and I turned on the Panther game, and it was 6-1 already. I couldn't believe it. Like, what the heck happened?
Nobody could believe it.
It happened fast.
Yeah.
My dad was watching the highlights because he doesn't have access to watch it. And he was like, it looked like Tampa was just standing around. I'm like, they kind of were. I don't really feel like that was the best game I've seen the Panthers play this year. It was just kind of slap it around and the puck would go in the net.
Everything they shot went in.
That's how I felt.
And I won't say who, but the other fellow that does the analyst job with the Panthers said to me the night before, he said, I think the Cats could be in trouble. I think Tampa's playing really well.
Yeah. That's how I felt going in.
Might have been trouble at the opening puck drop.
It just didn't show up. Well, Tampa did score like 40 seconds into the game.
Right.
But then after that, Bob closed the door. But I'll tell you something about Tampa, and I don't know how much time you've spent there. Her and I were at the game. Walking out, people weren't angry. We listened to the post-game show, and the fans, the players were like, listen, this isn't us. This won't happen again. They weren't good against Ottawa either, but they got a lot of equity in their fan base there.
That's what I think, Rod. So I think you have that experience, right? There's no sense to panic, right? You've got your Stamkos, your Hedmans, your Kucherovs, your Vasilevskis, these guys that have been through it a lot. Now Sergachev's out. You got Braden Point. It's tough holding the team together, though, when you have all that success in the playoffs, right? Because you only have, 81 or 82 to spend. Everybody's making sort of max dollars, and then you get squeezed, right, for the remaining 15 bodies. So it's tough to sort of maintain that. But I don't it's like Pittsburgh. I'd never count Sidney out. I'd never bet against Kucherov and Stamkos, right? I mean, they just know sort of how to get the job done. And then you get in a playoff round against those veteran teams, and they know how to do it, right? So it's I'd never bet against them.
I think Serina's been saying that all year.
Literally, saying that all year. Don't ever count Tampa out for those exact reasons. And like what you were talking about exactly, John Cooper is that guy that's going to keep everybody here. You have guys like Stamkos that have never get wound up about anything. He's such a great captain for them. Such a great hockey player, and it just filters down. Nobody's getting wound up. Having said that, with Sergachev, going back to the trade deadline thing.
Oh, yeah, right, true.
He's going to be out for however long, but...
And I think you hit the nail on the head, so people weren't angry. I think that's a veteran fan base now, too, right? They've been through a lot of long cup runs. They've won them, and they're not going to panic that the club, had a little bit of a dip in sort of middle February.
I think I would say I'm an equal fan of both teams, right? Like I have my team or whatever. You can see panic when the Panthers lose a couple. You don't see panic. Yeah. But on the flip side, you see, when the Panthers win a few and Tampa's like, we got a long way to go. Yeah. It's a marathon, not a sprint. I've said that before. But again, you're right. It's a veteran fan base of playoffs. Plus, they were probably shell-shocked all to hell that night, too.
No doubt. Can I ask you two a question?
Yes.
With your Western Canada background, I always liken, I say on the broadcast all the time, I liken, now that the Panthers and Tampa are elite clubs, I liken Florida to the Battle of Alberta. We used to go out there, and if you happen to win in Edmonton, you're really lucky because Calgary's probably going to thump you the next night. Do you guys sort of look at this trip down to the south here now as a similar battle for the teams coming to the States?
Yes and no. You know yourself. Teams, when they come down here, sometimes get nights off to run in Miami. Blackhawks. Nobody's running in Edmonton. It's still a holiday venue, I think. Yeah. But I kind of understand what you're saying with Anaheim. There was a time with, You're going to play the Ducks, Sharks, and Kings. You're going to get your ass kicked, right? And that hasn't been that way for a long time. But I still see this as a holiday trip. You see the parents and dads trips are here.
That's true.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I hear what he's saying. Because whenever the teams go to Alberta, they play Calgary first, or they play Edmonton first. Edmonton gets them when they're fresh. Calgary gets them the next night. Same here. They play here first, then they go to Tampa usually. But are they going to win both of them? Not usually.
Never.
Yeah,
Nobody does.
almost never.
You said the exact same thing. If you're going to beat Edmonton, you're not beating Calgary the next night or vice versa.
Yeah, right.
Well, you're talking straight hockey terms.
That's what I'm talking,
Sure,
right.
but the fans wrote in last one of these episodes and said, when will this be a rivalry? They want it to be, and it ain't. Nothing will be Battle of Alberta.
Right. That's true. That's true.
Yeah, what would it take?
So maybe they need to change the playoff format. Maybe divisional teams. So why do Tampa and Florida have to play early in the playoffs all the time? Maybe they should have to play third. So you go 1 versus 8, 2-6, right, or 2-7, 3-6. Maybe that ends up having, Florida and Tampa meet in round 3 sometimes. So you get 3 rounds, and maybe that sort of hammers it out a little bit.
They got to meet regularly.
Right.
So
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sorry, and maybe
go
too, maybe you have to play 6 games against your division and not 4.
That's the key.
That's
right
what we
there.
were
Maybe
talking
that's it.
about.
Yeah.
Yep. Edmonton and Calgary's played 12 times a season.
Yeah, right.
And if these two teams played 12 times, I think it would be, having said that, then you'd have to restructure your playoff format. Back when they used to have the Smythe division, that was a big, strong division, but only one good team was going to come out. Yeah. You'd have to restructure that if you're going to play the same team 12 times.
Agree.
Yeah. So, I don't know if there'll ever be a right answer, but I hear
That's
what
a
you're
tough one. They went away from the 8-10 game season series because of what the Flames and Oilers did. Now they only play 3.
Probably right.
Because we can't be
destroying
brawling on
each other.
Hockey
I
Night in
think they
Canada.
tried to get away from 3-on-3 hockey too because how good the Oilers were at one point too, right?
Yeah, probably. Do you have just for fun, we won't hold you to this, a Stanley Cup final pick today?
In my pocket? In my phone?
No, in there, off the top of your head.
Oh, today. Oh, for the, yeah.
not a picture, like a
Yeah,
pic.
so.
Sorry.
If you have a picture,
prediction. A fun prediction.
Yeah, we'll see.
Sorry.
I was driving to the rink yesterday, my dad and I, Nancy was with us and another friend. But anyway, Jovel was on NHL Network, and they asked him who he thought was the best team in the East. And I'm like, just tell him, Eddie, it's Florida. Like, nobody's playing as well as these guys. Like, it's the truth right now. So, I think out West, I wouldn't want to play the Oilers, but I have to think right now it's, and obviously Vegas, but I think if that Colorado power play continues to grind it as it can, they're going to be awfully tough. So I'd actually predict, I'm going to think Florida, Colorado would be my guess today on who's going to.
That'd be a good one.
Yeah, I think it would. Shades of, what was it, 97 or 96?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
That's another team I said, too, at the start
Colorado?
of the season. Yeah, watch out for Colorado because they are not going away.
If they're healthy, they may, I don't know, they get Landeskog back?
Yeah, that's the word. Yeah.
So,
And they just signed
doesn't
Parise.
hurt.
Sat back and waited for the right.
Yeah.
Players can do that now. They don't need the money.
Yeah, they're deep on the blue line. Right, they don't. Yeah, right? When you come off
Yeah.
of, what is it, $120 million deal or whatever that was,
Yeah.
and you get bought out.
By the way, we want to remind you we're brought to you by DraftKings, the official sports betting partner of the NFL. The crown is yours, and we have a new message from DraftKings. They're introducing the no sweat bet for new customers up to $1,000. Get a bonus bet back in the amount of your original wager if your first bet doesn't hit. Use the promo code THPN. You see it on their screen. That stands for the Hockey Podcast Network. DraftKings, the crown is yours. And Jeff Chychrun's appearance brought to you by the Beach House, Pompano, a scenic rooftop restaurant on the shores of Pompano Beach, and Baresco right across the street, a tropical outpost serving only the freshest tacos and lush jungle vibes, located at 225 North Pompano Beach Boulevard. I'm not letting you get out here without what I promised. The parents, hockey parents, have said to me, can you explain Jeff's involvement in Jacobs minor hockey and whether, or what do they call it here, youth hockey?
Yeah,
Right. But
Travel.
You guys, whether you view it or not, is like the dream of the Florida hockey parents, how you did it. And now he's in the show, and he's a stud, and Grandpa can come down and watch him play. They're trying to follow what you're doing,
right.
I think.
Yeah.
How did you do it?
God, I tried to enjoy it, right? First of all, but no, I don't know. Really stressed the skill side of it and having fun. I was able to be hands-on sort of through the Pee-wee years and sort of run the practices every day. And I remember, so for my son, I was able to keep the numbers down, the junior Panther teams we had. So instead of having 3 lines and 6 defense on every team, we'd have 2.5 lines, maybe 4 or 5 defensemen at most. So I was able to have a lot of players sort of play multiple positions, and I thought it was really great. Brandon Duhaime, who plays in Minnesota today, his mom actually thanked me a few years later because, and his dad played in the Quebec League, played in Drummondville, a few stops, and he played pro. She thanked me for having Brandon play because all of it played different positions, but all of a sudden he's playing the USHL and he's playing the point on the power play, things like that. So you sort of, that muscle memory, because I never felt like, you're 8 years old, do you know you want to play left wing for the next 15 years? I never really thought that's the way it should be. And I thought you develop those different skills by playing the different positions. It's like, and that's the same for multi-sports, right? Play different sports. Maybe you're a better hockey player than the one you end up choosing to be at some point. But anyway, back to whatever. I like them to have fun with it, but I really stress the skill. So number one, it's always skating. I always told Jake, it's all in the feet. So if your feet are moving, pucks are probably going to follow. Number two, the kids that were down here, we had Jay Bomeister played here. And Bo, to me, he was probably the best, him and maybe Scott Niedermeyer, probably the best pure skaters in the game for a couple decades, the two of them, right? Like they could really flat out fly. But Bo skated like this, and his head was constantly like his head was on a swivel the whole time. So I always told the kids, watch Bo. He looks like a giraffe on the ice, right? So you got your vision. And do love the puck. I remember we went to Montreal when the kids were 8, and in Quebec they had some. We were non-contact here playing here, right? They actually played a contact tournament when they were young, and I remember the parents here, the junior Pan, they were getting all excited, telling their kids to go in and, wow, you guys can body check and don't be afraid to hit someone out there. So the kids came in the room and I said, how many of your parents told you guys you could hit this game? And 3 of them, their arms go right up. I said, well, they threw their parents under the bus. I said, well, your parents are wrong. And if any of you hit, you're not going to play today, sort of thing. But to me, don't worry about that physical stuff. You can talk about time and space, but when you hit, you go play for the Moose Jaw Warriors or whoever. Any coach will teach you, the physical side of the game. As long as you can really skate and play those angles, I think the skill, it's skill, skating.
It is now, yeah.
Because then otherwise, and don't always make the simple play, right? Because what happens then, and I got this from Al McInnes, he said there's not enough players, defensemen, play with the puck in the middle of the ice. So that went, Jacob was 10, but that made so much sense to me. So I taught the boys to love the puck. And to me, a brave hockey player is a guy that wants that puck in the middle of the ice with 30 seconds left in the game. That's a pretty ballsy play, right? You have to be able to make those plays. So anyway, it's have fun, it's skate, and work on
emphasize skill.
That's what it is.
And take the puck to bed. Love the puck. Sleep with it.
What you said about Jay Bomeister is interesting. I mean, there's a reason he played on the World Junior team at 15.
Exactly.
Because he was a tall, lanky kid, but he could still skate. Tyler Myers.
Skate, fantastic. I mean, amazing feat, really.
It's amazing.
With the wind, yeah.
Yeah. And he scored 16 goals one year, but he probably averaged 4 a year. Didn't have those unique offensive. He wasn't a catalyst like that, but the coach knew he could throw him out there for 24 minutes and not have to worry about it, right? Just because he could skate.
The last thing I want to bring up is the notion of a tailgate party. And by the way, Brent Woltman from Wellington, Florida, had the question about coaching your kid.
Regina, Saskatchewan.
Regina,
nice.
yes, long story down here. Found me through the Panthers official Facebook group. It's unbelievable how we connect. And was it his idea to have the tailgate, or how did that all come up?
We were talking about having a tailgate for Cats and Bolts because on the 9th, when
the Flames
Calgary's here, it's an afternoon game. It's a 4:00 game. So we were like, we should do a tailgate party or something for the fans. And he's like, let's do it. I can help out with that.
Right. So I'll ask the viewers, is that something you'd be interested in? DM us, and I think we can make it happen with the help of the Panthers. Maybe we'll put up a gift certificate from the Panther store or something like that.
You can come too.
Yeah, Chick, we'd love to have you.
Yeah.
If
Thank
you're
you.
still around, there'd be a reason to stay, John.
I think I'm working that
Yeah.
game. I
Oh,
know
there
I'm
you
working
go.
You'll
that
be there.
game.
Yeah,
Stop
we'll
by.
do it
Stop by.
well in advance. So let's plan for that March 9th in the parking lot of American Bank Arena. The Huberdeau Welcome Back game. That's the last thing I'll say, Chick. Is that a thing? Will it be a thing?
I think it is. I mean,
Yeah.
he put in a lot of great years here, right? And he was a go-to guy, very popular with the fans. And I think his family came in from Quebec, spent all winter here. And so he was a real part of the fabric here. And yeah, I think it should be. He's one of the best Panthers ever. And it was an amazing trade, wasn't it? How often did 210-point guys get traded in their prime? So, yeah, he should be.
He's
Should
a
be good night.
fantastic hockey player.
Yeah.
There
Good
you go,
person.
folks. It's a thing. March 9th, we'll see you in the parking lot of American Bank Arena. Flames at the Panthers. Chick, always
Hey,
a pleasure. Love
thanks,
watching
Rod.
you on there.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
and great to
Serena.
meet your dad.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much, guys.
Yeah, good luck down the hockey trail. And everybody, we'll see you next week right here on the Cats and Bolts podcast.